Good morning, everybody. We're just letting everybody into the room just now for our weekly webinar. Just give us a second to make sure everybody's in the room. This is a meeting format as well, so everybody will be on screen, but obviously feel free to mute or come off camera if you want to. So I think that's everybody in the room just now. There's nobody else in the waiting room. So yeah, as I said, good morning and welcome to everybody to the webinar today, to our weekly webinar. This is one of our regular finance focus sessions. So we're delighted to be joined by UnLtd today to talk about the new social investment fund with Rhea and Alex. So I will hand over to Rhea just now, and we'll have time for questions after as well, but do post questions in the chat if you want to, or indeed when we come to the questions, come on screen and you can ask it directly as well. So I'll hand over to Rhea just now. Thanks.
Hi everybody, I'm Rhea, Portfolio Manager at UnLtd, and I've been working on the Growth Impact Fund alongside Alex, who I will allow to introduce himself while I share the slides we're going to go through today.
Thanks, Rhea, and morning everyone, really good to see you. I'm Alex, I'm the project lead for the Growth Impact Fund, which we're here to talk to you about today. Rhea and I always joke actually that we go around the houses at the moment to talk about the Growth Impact Fund, and we're glad we've timed it with the Edinburgh Fringe. It feels like our fringe showcase today, so we're quite excited. As Rhea and I have said, we're from UnLtd. I know some of you might know of UnLtd and know about us, some of you might not. Just to give you a quick overview, we're a UK-based charity. We are one of the leading supporters of social entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurship in the UK. And we support social entrepreneurs through early stage grant financing, non-stop financial support, and more recently through investment and repayable finance. And the Growth Impact Fund is the latest investment offering that we are providing. And that's what we're here to talk to you about today. I'll give you a brief overview of what the fund is, what we're offering, and how you can get in touch and potentially take advantage of what we're offering. And then Rhea will dive into the detail of the particular finance we're offering and more about the detail around the process, the application process. Rhea, if you can go to the next slide, that would be great, please. Thank you. So the Growth Impact Fund, I should start by saying that we're doing this in partnership UnLtd with Big Issue Invest. You may have heard of Big Issue Invest. Big Issue Invest is a UK-based social investor. They've run investment funds for a number of years now, really experienced. And so the Growth Impact Fund is a partnership that we've been working to develop over the last 2 to 3 years. And we're just about to formally launch it and start making our first investments. At a really top line level, what is it? It's an opportunity to get some form of repayable finance. The target is that we'll have 25 million to give out and to invest over the next 5 to 10 years. That's our target. We're expecting to be launching with around 8 million to invest. We're targeted to be growing that. And we're doing this, the investment opportunity is for early stage growing social businesses that are impact focused. So that really is it. That's the fund and the offer at a top line level. I think it's useful just to start to say where this has come from. When we started looking at this with Big Issue Invest, we started to look at what are the areas we would want to improve within the social investment market. As I think we certainly had a view that it wasn't providing the right type of investment, or wasn't working completely right for social entrepreneurs and social enterprises. And the 3 main areas that we wanted to improve and to achieve through this investment offering for social enterprises. The first is really inclusivity. The research that we did over the last few years, the term we kept coming back to was it's a white man's world, and we wanted to make this fund different, and so we wanted to make it as inclusive as possible. The second was accessibility. From speaking to social entrepreneurs and founders of social enterprises, that process of seeking large-scale repayable finance, the word that kept coming up was daunting, and that you needed some form of literacy already in the investment world. And so we wanted to make this different. We wanted to make it as accessible as possible from the first time that someone gets in touch with the fund right through to when they receive investment and beyond that. And the third area, in addition to inclusivity and accessibility, was really ensuring that we offer the right type of finance. And that's both the amount and then how it's structured. The term we kept coming back to was patient capital, patient finance, so finance payable back on the terms that on a timescale that works for that social enterprise, that allows them to grow, and really flexible, so structured in the right way. So that could be a loan, but also those more innovative types of funding structures, so equity, revenue participation, convertible loans, which Rhea will talk to you more about. So it's really trying to be as inclusive, as accessible as possible, and trying to find the right type of finance to social enterprises. I'll quickly end on, before I hand over to Rhea, on just what we've got at the bottom of that slide, and that's our definition of diversity. To say we want to make this as inclusive as possible. So we've got a target in the fund, and that is that 50% of our investment capital will go to organisations that have 75% representation at board level, if there is a board at the point of investment, and at least 50% representation of senior leadership of the senior leadership team, composed of people that identify with one of the following characteristics. So we wanted to broaden the scope of who we invest our capital in through the fund. So that's really the investment opportunity at a top line level. I know we've got questions coming into the chat. I think we'll come to questions right at the end, so we'll have plenty of time for that. But I'm going to hand over to Rhea, who's going to talk to you more about the detail of the fund, what we're offering, and how you can get in touch.
Thank you, Alex. You might have just seen me working out how to unmute. I am using for a little while, so stay with me if there's any technical glitches. But I just wanted to say, as Alex mentioned, there will be time for questions and answers at the end. So feel free, if as I'm going through the different types of finance and now offering to put your questions in the chat, and we can come back and discuss those in detail after we've just gone through the next slide. If it moves to the next slide, here we go. So Alex mentioned the types of finance that we offer with this fund. So the types of repayable finance we have are loans or debt, which will be offered in the higher amounts for organizations. And I must say, we'll look at every organization on a case-by-case basis to see sort of what your growth aims are, how much investment you need, and why, and the time periods taken to achieve that. Building in that patient capital time frame as well, so it could look like 8 years of repayments for this. For debt, you do not have to have a specific legal model. You could have a company limited by shares, a company limited by guarantee, and all the sort of iterations. So we'll work with lots of different organizations on your debt aims as part of the fund. For revenue participation agreements, these are open to any legal structure again, and we hope to provide more of these in terms of for the social investment market, as they have been happening before, but we want to do more investments of this type. What's interesting about revenue participation agreements is that they are a loan, but repaid according to the revenue of an organization over a pre-agreed time period. It sounds quite long, but in short, it means that when we agree the terms of the loan, we'll also agree a percentage repaid over the years of that repayment period. So it could look like 4% of your revenue in the first year, 3% in the second year, 2% in the third year, and 4% in the fourth year. But it really just sort of depends on the flex of your cash flow and when you see sort of peaks and troughs in your revenue. So for example, if you're an organization that has a peak time at Christmas, you might be repaying more over the first quarter of the year, and if your sales trough over summer, you may be repaying less over the third quarter of the year, for example. And then we also have equity, which is part ownership of organizations. So for that, we'd be looking at percentage of a company limited by shares, and the amount offered would sort of depend on the size of the organization and the valuation, but we hope to provide this for earlier stage organizations up to sort of growing and later stage organizations as well. So definitely a bespoke offering, so we can't give you exact amounts, but we can say that if you would be interested in any of these types of finance and you think sort of your organization fits with the fund's offering, then do get in touch about that. And when you get in touch, what does that look like? So very much a flexible process. So there is no formal application, but there is an expression of interest form on our website where we ask organizations for some top line details, and then we'll get in touch to have a conversation. I must say that these are currently sort of undergoing some changes. So we'll be reopening that expression of interest form hopefully by mid-October. But if you want the latest news, because it can sort of open before then, please sign up to our UnLtd newsletter. As we said previously, there will be an initial conversation, and then the process really sort of depends on your organization and where you're at with social investment. So you may not have received social investment before and might want some initial support on that. And there is a grant offering of up to £15,000 for some organisations, especially those that haven't received funding before, and especially those that haven't got more than £500,000 in their annual turnover. And what this will look like is a referral to my team. You would work with a portfolio manager on getting investment ready, whether that's looking at a financial model and working on that with you, or whether you're further away and wanting to work on sort of sales pipeline and what a growth plan could look like for your organization. And that can be anywhere between 3 months before investment and up to 24 months before investment, which is why it's also quite flexible there as well. If you go through that first conversation and you are ready for going through the investment process, and if you fit with sort of the fund's aims and values, then you would progress through to pre-due diligence and due diligence, which is sort of almost an abstract term, but it just sort of includes looking through your organization's documents, what your growth plans are, what your finances might look like, and what kind of funding you're wanting, and putting together an investment proposal. And you'll work with another member of our amazing team on that as well. After that, it would go to an investment advisory committee where they'll look through your application or your proposal for investment, and that may then go forward to receive investment. It may not. If you do receive investment, you'll also get sort of post-investment support from myself or someone from my team, because as part of the Growth Impact Fund, we want to make sure there's access to further support and wraparound support, as we call it down here, which means that you'll have a portfolio manager that will work with you on your growth aims, anything that sort of is a challenge after investment that you're working on, or if you would like a connection to someone within our network or beyond, we'll support you on a case-by-case basis. So that could be meetings on every quarter, or maybe once every 2 weeks for some, to really just support you with your business growth journey. And then finally, we just wanted to mention a big part of this fund is about learning and sharing these learnings with the social investment sector, because although we're doing a lot of work in this area now, we want more and more social investors to be joining with that, or if they are ready to be sharing their learnings with us. So what we're doing is sharing sort of how we developed the fund, what we've experienced so far, and where we want to go with that in October with other funders. And we also hope to advise and work with other funders that are hoping to set up similar funds. So if you do know anyone and you'd like to also refer them to us, please do. And one final point is, alongside the Growth Impact Fund, we've developed something called the Diversity, Equality and Inclusion Toolkit. This is a part of the fundamental sort of aims of the fund to make sure that we can provide the support for any social purpose organisation, so social enterprise, etc., who wants to work on their DEI aims. And this also will be shared as a free tool, hopefully very soon. So also please sign up to the UnLtd newsletter to get updates on that. For those that are even not working with the Growth Impact Fund or going through our investment process, we want this to be a toolkit that people can use to evaluate where they are at with their own organisation's journey with DEI, and then make targeted goals and receive the support that they need to get to their next stages and actions. I think that is everything in terms of the sort of detail and top line, but please let us know any questions you have. Thank you so much for your time and for listening to Alex and I. I'll leave this space open and stop sharing so that we can take questions. Just reading the chat right now. To Martin's point, yes, I think Alex has already responded, but we did get more expressions of interest than we initially expected, also almost sort of a magnitude more. So if you haven't heard from us since, hopefully you will be hearing back from someone soon.
Sorry, apologies, I got booted out there for some reason. So sorry, apologies about that. Have you completed the presentation?
Yes, we're just on question and answers now.
Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, I can't see the chat myself, but if you are just picking up questions at the moment. Or...
Yes. So we've got wondering what is the repayment plan on the fund, and what happens if a business is unable to generate the expected returns. That's a really good question. So as I mentioned, there's sort of bespoke repayment plans developed according to an organization's growth aims and the time period that they would like to repay over, and that would work with their expected revenue growth. But what we hope to do is make sure that that takes into account sort of any growth expectations or potential shifts to that as well. So we'll be checking in with you at least on a quarterly basis to make sure everything's going to plan. And if not, then we can have a conversation with our other advisors and investment committee to support you in whatever way we can to either get back on track with where you want to be or shift the repayment plan if needed. Alex, did you have any more to add on that?
Not too much than to say that the fund really exists to really support those ambitions. It exists as an impact-focused and impact-first investment fund to provide investment opportunities to really help social enterprise grow and meet their ambitions. So we've worked together and that really comes back to trying to find the right type of structuring, the right amount of finance that works for that enterprise. So we have worked over a number of months to really figure out what that is, and that could be a number of ways, and hopefully then that would tally with the reality over the coming 3, 4, 5, 6 years of that investment term.
I think what was welcome about it was the kind of flexibility and simplicity of the fund as well. I think that's really welcome. I think a lot of social entrepreneurs talk about the complexity of funding applications, for example, that kind of thing. And it's quite good to kind of see you've got that kind of approach of informal conversation, flexibility, simplicity. I think particularly for organizations that are just starting out and maybe considering social investment for the first time, I think that's always an issue for them. I suppose my question would be, what kind of advice would you give to social enterprises and other third sector organizations thinking about social investment for the first time? What kind of advice would you maybe give to them in terms of making them feel more comfortable with it, really?
I don't want to jump.
After you, Rhea.
Okay, a couple of things. If your new to social investment is to speak to different social investors, everybody sort of comes with their different value adds. We have sort of the focus of our fund, but there are lots of, there are other funds out there, and it's worth sort of comparing who's going to be best to work with your organization, both in terms of the finance offerings that they have, but also about who they can connect you with, how they look to also add value in different ways after investment. And also what types of investors. So you have foundations, but also angel investors, so individuals that you can work with who really sort of might focus more on you as an individual, or work with earlier stage organizations. There are also, of course, banks out there. And I think making a cross comparison is really helpful, just to see also what questions you should ask other investors. So if we're saying this, then how do they compare? And it's not like compare the market per se, but it's just good to have those conversations and to build those connections as well, because although you might work with one investor 1 year, maybe a couple of years down the line, someone else you would want follow-on funding from someone else. I would also say a great resource to look at if you haven't already is Good Finance. I'm going to put the link in the chat, but they have a great bank of case studies of what types of investments other social enterprises or have received, and then also a breakdown of the different jargon. A lot of terms are used in this sector that aren't necessarily clear on initially. So if you want to go through that and sort of see what people are offering and what that wording actually means, that's always a great reference. Alex, did you have more to add?
Nothing on that at all, Rhea. Thank you. I can pick up Marcus's question if that works. Marcus, I know you've asked about your experience of working with 2 impact investment funds in Africa and your experience of their risk appetite and what the risk appetite is for the growth impact fund. I'd like to think, and we're at the stage of starting this out, I'd like to think we've got a fairly healthy risk appetite. We've got, in a number of ways, we want to ensure that we keep impact focused. One way we do that is we've recruited an independent impact advisory group. They meet every quarter. They hold the investment committee to account. And their focus is to ensure that we continually keep impact focused throughout the fund. So we hope that's a nice balance, a nice independent balance that keeps both the investment team and also our independent investment committee on track. The second thing I think useful to note is when we, and in full interest of transparency, when we look at investments, and the investment committee will look at a number of metrics, but a number of those are always impact focused. There will also be finance focused metrics that we do consider. It has to work from that basis. But the impact focus is very much front and center. So I'd like to think as we start making our first investments that we keep it, that's definitely the intention, is to keep it as impact focused as possible, whilst making it work. Does that answer your question, Marcus? I suppose the proof will be in the pudding, and hopefully in a year or two we'll be able to come back and really say that was an evidence. But definitely as we move on the outset, that's how we try to structure it.
And I can come in to answer Martin's point, who's saying they're working with Kyler UnLtd via Innovate UK. So yes, we have involved everybody within the UnLtd organisation at this point in the sort of start of the fund. They are very aware with where we're at, and they can support from sort of their perspective, depending on their experience with social investment. But they can also sort of start the introductory conversations with our team at the right time, sort of depending on what you're looking for and where you're at. So hopefully that helps. And then also just to cover another point, yes, if you've received funding from UnLtd before, this fund is still open to you. It's open to any social enterprise in the UK. So that hopefully covers that question as well.
Interesting, I suppose, from a policy perspective as well, because obviously we're in policy in Scotland, certainly we're talking very much about equalities and inclusion. So I think this is extremely timely in that respect as well. So, you know, we've hosted a webinar on kind of, you know, how we make the social enterprise community more, you know, more inclusive, I think, as well. And there's a lot of work to do there. So we have some good statistics, for example, on women's leadership, but there's obviously far more we can do in this kind of areas. It's interesting from that perspective as well. So certainly, I would say in Scotland anyway, there's a equalities and inclusive policy priority, particularly in the context of Social Enterprise Scotland becoming the single enhanced intermediary as well. So there's quite a lot of work we're going to be doing around this agenda. So we'll obviously keen on, you know, keeping up the conversation with you guys and kind of connecting. So definitely for sure. Has anybody else got any questions at this time? You can come, you can just ask the question if you want. If you want to unmute and ask the question, feel free, rather than just using the chat. Entirely up to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it, Martin.
Yeah. At the moment, we're early stage. We've got a founder team of 3 with distinctly lacking in diversity. 3 white men, I'm afraid. However, we have a more diverse advisory team around us, and certainly our objective as we grow the board is to significantly increase the diversity. Is that going to hold us back in discussions and applying that we are currently have a board of 3 white men.
Yeah, I can come in quickly on that. Yeah, really good question. Thank you, Martin. It's I know I mentioned at the start, we've definitely got that ambition for ring fencing at least 50% of our investment capital for organisations that currently meet those requirements. We're definitely not closed though to organisations that don't. I think what we would be looking for is definitely a commitment to improve EDI policies and practices within an organisation and diversity. So we'd be looking for that commitment. I think that's definitely aligned with the values of the fund. But we'd also really take into account an organisation like yourselves that has a really diverse advisory board. I think that's definitely something that would for us be a clear show of that commitment. So it's yeah, I hope that provides a little bit more clarity. Sounds like you'd definitely be eligible. Rhea, I don't know if you wanted to add anything on that.
Only that that's also one of the reasons we developed the diversity, equality and inclusion toolkit, so that we can support organisations with their sort of goals in this area and really sort of work with you to work out sort of what your commitment looks like and where you want to be, say, in a year or 2 years' time. So that's an added thing.
Something we can certainly help promote as well. If you want to send us some details about that, I think that toolkit sounds very useful actually. Yeah.
Definitely will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else got any particular questions? Want to come on the screen and meet? So if there's no follow-up questions just now, but there was one just popped up. Somebody asking, does a community interest company qualify for funding? It's a question we get quite a lot actually these days.
Yes, yeah, the answer is yes. It depends on your sort of whether you're a company limited by shares or limited by guarantee, as to which sort of types of funding are open to you, but yes, you do.
Excellent. Yeah, we are facing, I think, a number of community interest companies are facing lots of barriers in terms of funding and investment at the moment, I think in Scotland and probably across the UK. So there's quite a lot of debate around this as well, and kind of, I suppose that comes back to the definition of social enterprise, which we won't talk about today. So, but there's certainly a lot of questions around that particular point. So trying to work out what the barriers are for community interest companies, I think that's really important. So if there aren't any final questions, yeah, feel free to come on camera or post in the chat if there are any. But if there aren't any professional questions, we can wind up just now. But obviously, if you do have something you think about later on, then you can send the question to me, and I can forward on to UnLtd, and we can have a conversation then about any other information you might need or want about the fund as well, and about the other work of UnLtd as well. I think it'd be really interesting if people have any questions around that. But any final comments from Rhea or Alex around this?
Just that I'll put the website link in the chat if we haven't done that already. Thank you everybody for having us, and yeah, do let us know if there's any further questions after this session. Alex?
Nothing to add, just to say thank you for joining, and as Rhea said, please do get in touch. The portal, the application portal should reopen around mid-October, and if you go onto the Growth Impact Fund page, you should be able to then sign up to the UnLtd newsletter. All details about when it reopens will be in there, and we'll put it on our social media as well. But yeah, do get in touch with either of us as well if you have any specific questions.
Great, thanks so much. And we'll do a follow-up email as well. So if you've got any information you want to send through, any web links, we can put that in an email to anybody who couldn't attend today as well, actually. So we'll send some information through, yeah, keep everybody updated. But thanks so much to our speakers. That was really, really good, really useful to hear about the new fund, and also just kind of to catch up with UnLtd in general. Actually, I think we've not caught up in a while as well. So it's good to kind of have a general catch up. But yeah, anybody got any questions, just please pass them on to me and I'll pass them on to UnLtd. But thank you very much and have a great day, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.